Hey, Sean here at Grim Parts Co. Today I'm going to show you how to install our hard bag mounting kit on your hard bags. I have a set of brand new Happy Trails bags here that we're going to mount up and stick on a Dyna. Okay, a hard bag mounting kit comes with 8 fender washers, 4 lower mounting tabs, and 4 quick release screw-on brackets, along with the hardware to mount all of it up. In order to install the kit, you're going to need a drill. We like to use step bits here, but a 3/8 drill bit will work just fine. Permanent magic marker or a dry erase pen, something to mark your holes with, some Loctite, a couple different ways to measure things. Tape measure, a machinist rule, and a classic yardstick always works good. And last but not least, some tape so you can tape your template in place. A couple things to note before you get started is the bags open obviously up one way, so you're going to want the lid to be to the outside of the bike, and then your canyon cut on the bottom of the bike will be facing out too. So pick a bag, note the way it opens, and then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a center line on the bag. So I just use measuring tape, mark your centers, and draw. I use a dry erase marker. You can use a permanent marker, and then that'll give us a spot to work from. So after you mark your center line, I always mark the bag to the front and what side it is. That'll allow me to deal with my offsets if I do any, to not confuse left and right side. On a Dyna, we typically mount it 1 inch to the front of an offset. On FXRs, we usually mount it to the center. That's what we found that works. It's up to you 100% on how you want to mount them. So this at least gives you a guideline. Okay, as you're going through the process, it's really a pretty simple setup, but there's a couple things to note. This is your mounting pattern, and whether it's going to be up or down, and then obviously forward or back. So what we did was we have a center line here, and if you line that up with your center line perfectly, that's going to put your mounting pattern in the middle of the bag, and then you're going to want to measure from the bottom holes down to kind of set how high or how low you want the bag to ride on the hoops. As you move the paper up, your bag position goes down, and as you move the paper down, your bag position goes up. Another thing to note is roughly from the center hole of this to the bottom of the tab is about where your tube will sit. That's 1.5 inches. So if you want your bag to sit 1 inch higher, you'll add 1 inch extra to that number. So 1.5 inches plus 1 inch will put you at 2.5 inches. And then that will give you an idea of where to measure from your lower bag mount hole on the template to the edge of the bag, and that'll tell you in relationship where your bag's going to sit based on those numbers I just gave you. So now that we just confused the shit out of you, we'll replay the last couple seconds. We have a center line here, and if you line that up with your center line perfectly, that's going to put your mounting pattern in the middle of the bag, and then you're going to want to measure from the bottom holes down to kind of set how high or how low you want the bag to ride on the hoops. As you move the paper up, your bag position goes down, and as you move the paper down, your bag position goes up. Another thing to note is roughly from the center hole of this to the bottom of the tab is about where your tube will sit. That's 1.5 inches. So if you want your bag to sit 1 inch higher, you'll add 1 inch extra to that number. So 1.5 inches plus 1 inch will put you at 2.5 inches. And then that will give you an idea of where to measure from your lower bag mount hole on the template to the edge of the bag, and that'll tell you in relationship where your bag's going to sit based on those numbers I just gave you. We're mounting these on a Dyna. We've got our center line, and this is our left bag, and the left is to the front. So what I need to do on a Dyna is we're going to do a 1 inch offset to the front, which will actually make the bag go to the back of the bike. So what I'll do is I'll take this next line over is 1 inch. We're going to line it up with our center line, and then I want the bag to sit 1 inch lower than the bar. So like I said before, center line to the bottom of our bracket is 1.5 inches, so I'm going to add another inch to that, which will put me at 2.5 inches. So I'll move my template up there. I'll measure 2.5 inches here, and just for kicks, we'll measure the other side 2.5 inches. We'll double check our center line here, and then we're going to tape the bracket in place. The last thing we're going to do is double check our measurements again, because you got a nice brand new set of $500 bags and you know, you don't want to punch a bunch of fucking holes in it. All right, so we've got our template taped on. Our 1-inch line is to the front, and we are in line with our line on the bag. Last thing I want to do is I need to be 2.5 inches from this point to the edge of the bag. So I'm just going to double check that measurement, and we are where we need to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a center punch. I will in the center of that, same thing here, and last but not least. The bolt size on all of our mounting stuff is 5/16. I like to punch these holes out to 3/8 to give you a little bit of play to get your bag set up nice and tight. Okay, we got our template all taped up. We've center punched all of our holes. We're gonna go ahead and pull the template off and get ready to drill. I like to use a step bit for a couple reasons. They make actual round holes. You'll notice in sheet metal a lot of times a traditional drill bit won't make a perfectly round hole. It also has a little bit of a chamfer here, so it sort of chamfers the edge of the hole, which is nice as well. You can use anything you got. A metal drill bit will work just fine. But like I said, here we use the step bits. So next thing we're gonna do is get ready to drill. And what I like to do with the step bits too, just so I don't have to think about it, we're gonna go to 3/8. So I'll take a black marker and I'll mark the notch above that. Use a little bit of cutting juice too, not a lot. Keep my tip lubricated.
Real Talk with Sean Jordan.
Best way to get into your boxes. All 4 holes drilled, and you know, probably before you even punch the hole, you're really hoping that this was all set up correctly. So what we'll do now is we're gonna go ahead and bolt on our kit and make sure that in fact we did some measurements correctly. So our kits come with a 5/16 18 bolt for the top and bottom. Like to use Loctite, even though we do come with a lock washer. This is one of those things, once they're mounted up, there's really no reason to take them off, so let's keep them on there for good. And then they will go with the tab spacing to the bottom. Get both of these guys screwed in, tighten them up nice and tight, and then we can hang them on the bike and see how we did. These knobs allow the bags to come on and off pretty quickly. Always make sure you got a lock washer on there, and then one of our big fender washers. If you don't use a knob, and like I leave my bags on pretty much year round, then I just go ahead and get another 5/16 18 bolt. These are 3/4 inch long, and then just still use that with your lock nut and your washer on the top. We always punch our holes out to 3/8, and sometimes we go a little bit bigger, and the reason for that is you want the nylon resting on the bar, and so with a little bit bigger hole to give you the adjustment to push down so that when your bag is sitting, it's actually kind of resting on the bar there. Something to take a look for when you're doing your install. If you have to open the holes up a little bit, by all means do. We have big flat fender washers in there, and when everything's nice and tight, you don't get any water or any moisture getting in that way. This is what we're supposed to end up with. It's finished. If you want to wash your lines off, of course you can do that. This is how simple it is to bolt these bags on. Line up your holes. So that's how you mount up your hard bags. Like I said, once you got everything drilled and ready to go on, it's really just those 2 knobs and you can take the bags off. We run these Happy Trails bags for a couple reasons. They're real simple, super sturdy. One of my favorite features is the fact that the lid stays on, and when you're digging around on the side of the road or at camp looking for something, gives you a great place to rest your stuff. Just in case you're wondering, your overall width is 35 inches. And then the final thing is it's got a little waterproof lock here, so you can actually lock these bags in, and unless somebody's super serious, they're not getting in. So keep your stuff dry, safe, and secure with these boxes, and thanks for buying our products.